Well, hey there, everybody. I am going to do my first roast with my Behmor 1600 Plus. I had heard a lot of watched a lot of videos on this roaster and on lots of different roasters as I was kind of doing some research, and heard the pronunciation Behmor and Behmor. But after having the roaster in my hands, I've decided it is Behmor. I would imagine it's a play on words they're doing here. Be more inspired. So I would imagine, based on this flyer that's in the package with the roaster, that it's Behmor. So I will officially be saying Behmor. I'll put that question to bed, at least in my mind. But if you want to check out more about what Behmor does, with the sale of their roasters, they actually do give back to the farmers and give roasters to some of the Central American farmers who don't have access to roasters, so that they can actually taste their own coffee and then use what they're tasting in the cup to improve their crop, so that they can ultimately have a better product and get more money. So it's a win-win, and so that's what the Behmor Inspired program is all about, that Behmor does. So my cat's coming in. Hopefully he doesn't knock into the tripod. So anyway, I'm going to get started with my first roast. They recommend doing a dry burn when you get it, so running it empty first. So I did that. I've already completed that. I am getting ready to roast up just a 1/4 pound for this first roast of this Ethiopian that I picked up from Seven Hills Coffee, which is local to me. And here are the green beans, as you can see there. Now, green beans, for those of you who don't know, I know a lot of you watching will know this, but they're very small pre-roast, and they expand as you roast them and become drinkable goodness. So anyway, I have a 1/4 pound measured out here. This unit has a, for those of you who care to know, this unit has a fairly decent, from what I understand, chaff collection system. This tray here is the chaff collector. So I'll remove that to get to the drum, and like I said, this is my first roast, so I'm figuring it out as we go. And I'm going to dump in a 1/4 pound of green beans, which sort of get lost in there. It's a very small amount, but I'm just going to start with a small batch and work my way from there. I'm actually going to do one of the preset modes on this, but as I'm listening for first crack, I want to make sure I don't go too dark on the roast. So if this profile automatically set on this seems like it's going to take it too far, I will probably go ahead and put it in a cool down sooner, or just take away time. There are various options you can do. So I'm planning on doing just a pre-programmed mode, but I may take over depending on what I'm hearing going on with the roaster. So I will get the drum placed back in here. Make sure it's seated nicely. Get the chaff tray. Now there's a little flap on top. It has to be down for roasting. It's made to go up so you can empty the chaff out when you're finished. But anyway, for the roasting process, that flap needs to be down. And there's a little handle that pushes these little levers or dams or whatever down to get it in and clear the roaster. Or the drum, I'm sorry. So anyway, getting this all in place, just push it till it won't go anymore. That's what I've done. I do know that this chaff tray, and I don't know if this means anything or is even a legitimate thing, but does have a little give, which is natural, from left to right. And my understanding is the sensors are in the right hand rear of the roasting compartment. So I'm going to make sure that the chaff tray is not right up against that and that it's away from it a bit and sort of almost split the difference so that it may not hinder the sensors reading the information in the roaster. So anyway, I have a 1/4 pound of green Ethiopian coffee in there. I have the chaff tray in. I'm going to go ahead and close the lid, make sure it's shut tightly. And to start, you don't turn it on or anything, it's plugged in. So I will, and I don't know what kind of smoke I'm going to get from this. Hopefully not a lot. But this first roast could maybe have a little extra due to some, just to it being new. So I don't know, I'm guessing. So I'm going to hit 1/4 pound and start. And I'll also turn on the light so I can see what's going on in there. I see right now by doing that, the default setting for this 1/4 pound goes to, there are different program modes. There's P1 through 5. So there are 5 program modes, I guess, on the roaster in the auto settings. And when you're in auto, P1 is sort of the highest ramp up for a roast. And P5 is the lowest sort of ramp up. Now my understanding is the Behmor 1600 plus, the nature of this Behmor roaster, it's a little slower in the ramp up progression of the roast, fancy terms. I have no idea what I'm talking about. Than, you know, an industrial roaster. So having it set on the highest is just going to hopefully help that happen a little sooner. At this point, I'm just going to watch it and see what happens. Of course, nothing is really happening yet. It's not up to temperature yet. But as it gets up there, I'm going to use what I can tell of sight by looking in through the window, which is pretty good visibility. The light is pretty yellow, so I don't know how much that will affect what I'm perceiving that is happening with the beans, that they will appear to be yellowing sooner than they really are. I am partially colorblind, so there's a little hindrance there. But between the visual, I don't know as far as aroma. I've done roasting on an air popper. I've used a bread maker and a heat gun. The bread maker basically is the compartment for the beans. The paddle that would knead the dough stirs the beans, keeps them moving for me, and the heat gun is the heat source. That's the gist, Cliff's Notes of that method. So I'm able to really get a good, I have a light, I can really get a good visual on it. The aromas are unobstructed because they're just right there and open and waft right up into my face, so I get a good sense of the aromas doing it that way. And then of course I can hear, but that machine is a bit noisy, so I can still hear first crack and second crack, which I never really go into second crack. I like a lighter roast. So all the senses were pretty much right there at my disposal doing the other method. So the machine is very quiet. I would imagine, especially based on videos I've seen, I'll be able to hear first crack pretty well. And but as far as the aroma goes, what I was getting to is this machine is new. When I did the dry burn on it, there was a certain odor coming off of it that, because it's new, is not going to be there for long, but it is there right now. I'm probably used to it at the moment because I don't particularly smell it now, but I could definitely get an odor coming off of it as it was doing the dry burn for the first time. So that may interfere with what I'm able to pick up through my nose to have a sense of what's going on with the roast through smell. So at this point, I'm going to depend mainly on sight and sound. And sound would be my primary thing, I would imagine, as I'm going along until I get into first crack. Then I think I'll be able to use sight a little bit more as well as sound. So if you guys are watching, I'm amazed. Thank you. I don't know, I may edit this and a lot of this, try to make it shorter, but anyway, this is this is truly just my first roast. Right now, the bean size doesn't appear to have really changed at all. They still look very green. They haven't gone into the yellow or tanning phase from what I can tell yet. I think it started with 8 minutes on the clock. We're coming up on halfway through that right now. I know you can hold down the A button and then also hold down the B button to get 2 different temperature readings. The A will give you the temperature of the exhaust that is coming out of the machine, and B will tell you the wall temperature inside the roaster. So I will be curious to see, so my exhaust temperature is 221 degrees, and the temperature of the wall is climbing, it's 237 Fahrenheit right now. So we're progressing along. We'll see what happens. This may be a good spot to edit. When the machine gets to, and this is a safety feature built into the Behmor, when it gets to about 75% of the roast, it has a feature that will automatically shut off if they think it's left unattended. So in order to assure that the machine isn't left unattended, there's a little feature. The screen will flash UN, and then it'll be colon starting at 30 and count down 29, 28. So you have 30 seconds to push the start button to continue the roast. If you don't do that, the machine will shut down, go into cool mode, and you will not be able to restart the roast, and the beans that are in there will not be completely roasted, and it will be a waste. So you will waste and lose those beans. So you want to stay on it. I think coming up just as we get past 2 minutes is where it's going to flash, and I'm going to have to push it within 30 seconds, and it'll continue the time as if nothing had happened. And there we go. So it's flashing, if you can tell. I don't know, but I'll hit start, and we'll go along in the roast. The beans are definitely darkening up quite a bit as I've been yakking here. I'm not going to try to move the camera to show you all that right now. As I learn the roaster a little bit more and get more comfortable with it, I'll bring the camera in and do a little more that way. But right now I can see the beans are definitely darkening up. They haven't expanded a whole lot yet, but we haven't entered first crack. First crack, right there. So 1 minute and 21 seconds, 22 seconds or so. I heard the beginning of first crack. First crack seems to be rolling along. Not quite, a consistent crack yet, but we're pretty close. I said I was going to keep it in auto mode, but I'm going to be ready. I think I'm going to I'm going to keep it in auto mode. I can add 15 seconds at a time or take 15 seconds away. But I think at this point, first crack seems to have sort of peaked, and now it's slowing down a bit. I still have 25 seconds left, and I need about a 15-second lead time to make sure I can stop the roast when I want. So I'm going to go ahead and hit. I'm torn. I think I'm going to let it go. My gut tells me I wanted to hit cool down at that point to stop the roast. I think I probably would have been better off doing that, but I'm going to let it go and see what happens. It has now entered cool down, but it will continue to roast for at least 15 to 30 seconds, I would imagine. There's still a little bit of residual roasting going on. So we've gone right through first crack. I hear no more. Well, there's another crack. So almost 20 seconds into the cool down, and I still hear it cracking. So we'll see what happens. We'll see how this looks when I take it out. They look really good. There's a little bit of chaff I have coming out right now. I see I've had 2 or 3 pieces of chaff come out. But most of the chaff should theoretically be collected in the tray. When it goes through this 8-minute cool down process, and really, from what I understand, you want the beans to not necessarily get room temperature, but get down to a temperature where you can touch them and it's not too hot to touch within about 4 minutes max. But you don't want to speed up the cool down process too fast, because evidently that can be detrimental to the flavor of the beans as well. So there's a balance. Probably somewhere between 2.5 and 4 minutes would be, I would imagine, more ideal. I think at this point it's safe to say that the roast has stopped, and that, well, let's look here. The exhaust is, well, that's kind of warm up there. 347. The wall temperature's coming down. It's amazing. It's really hot on top, not so much on the sides. At 253. So the roasting should have ceased, and we're going to coast on through. So when it's finished with the cool down process, I'll be able to take it out and touch it, the drum and everything, and it will not be too hot to touch. But I'll tell you right now, the top is pretty warm. I guess it could probably burn you, but it was certainly hotter than you'd want to comfortably touch. So anyway, the handle, the door is cool enough to touch. The sides, it's all pretty warm, but the top is the thing right now that I would say is too hot to comfortably touch. So we're well into cool down. There are tricks to cool the beans down faster. They say it's not good for the machine to do that. So at this point, I'm going to just see how we go with this. Just from what I can tell, the roast appears to be pretty consistent. I'm definitely getting some aroma from the beans, which is good. That is overriding the odor that was being put off by the machine. So I think getting a few roasts with the beans actually in there will help season it a bit, so that I'll truly be able to use smell as a good indicator to where we are in the roast. But anyway, so we are, we're doing fine. All right, so it has gone completely through the roast cycle, the pre-programmed quarter-pound roast cycle. Cool down just ended and the machine just shut off. So we'll see what happened here. See, there's some chaff here in the door. It does, I don't expect it to catch 100% of it. But we'll see how much is in the tray. I want to be careful when I pull it out not to have chaff blow everywhere. But I do have a vacuum here that I'll use to get any chaff up. But we'll see how good of a job it did at actually capturing the chaff. It's still fairly warm. I don't know if you can see how much chaff is in there, but there's a fair amount. We will pull the drum and take a look at the beans. Now there's some chaff on the drum itself. I'm going to try to sort of knock off into the roaster. Now I do see 2 beans that are stuck inside holes on the roaster. A few beans that are stuck in a couple of places. So I'm not going to knock those off into this finished roast. I'm going to look at those individually later. But right now, the loose beans that are here, I will dump into the middle pan. So that's all the loose beans. I do see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, looks like 5 beans stuck in various places. Those are very likely a little charred, but we'll take a look at those here in a little bit. Right now I'm just going to set this aside. I'm going to close the door back up, and we'll take a look at the roast. It looks pretty even. I'll show you guys here in a minute. I turned the light off here in my kitchen. I have just the window light because that overhead light was a little harsh for the camera. The roast is definitely right sort of at the edge of where I would not want to go any further typically. Of course, there are going to be exceptions. This is for drip, for pour over brewing, so I won't be using this for espresso or anything. So a lighter roast is good. So I would not want to go, personally, I think, any darker. So we'll see if you can at all see these. Hopefully that's coming through good enough for you to really get a sense for how the roast turned out. Now I will go ahead and turn on my kitchen light and let you see it that way, but all right. There's what we have. So this is the first roast. I'm going to let these beans sit for a good 24 hours, 48 hours before I brew them up and see how they tasted. So we'll be back with a report then. All right. Thank you all so much for watching and for enjoying this long video. And we'll have a full verdict here in just a bit. All right. Thanks for watching. God bless.